Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill will become the state's first female Democratic governor.
Yeah, Sherrill winning handily in a race that many saw as too close to call even hours before polls opened.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Well, that isn't the way that it was supposed to go at all. Honestly, Mikie Sherrill winning was not something that I wanted to see personally, but at the same time, I can't act like I am surprised. Unfortunately, New Jersey does go a certain majority. It has been going that way for a few years now. But the question does stand, is Mikie Sherrill bad for the Second Amendment, guns, concealed carrying, magazine restrictions, etc. for New Jersey? Let's talk about it. So if you don't know who Mikie Sherrill is, I won't be getting into her whole history as a politician or who she is as a person. I'm just going to be focusing on her opinions on the Second Amendment and gun rights. Now, we do know that her predecessor, who's still currently in office, Phil Murphy, is one of probably the worst politicians against the Second Amendment and guns in general. And she is coming up right behind him. She's part of the same administration. He endorsed her, and so we can expect that they're going to be fairly similar. But I did find some clips of Mikie Sherrill actually talking about guns and giving her own opinions. So let's go ahead, give these a watch, and see what kind of stance that she takes. All right, got my headphones on now. Let's give this a listen and see what her stance is like.
Well, in the rest of the country, gun violence has gone up 33%.
That's horrible.
It's gone down 10% in New Jersey.
Wow, after Bruen, who would have thought? I don't think that has anything to do with gun safety legislation. I think it's all the Bruen decision and more people carrying in the state of New Jersey.
If everything's so great.
You tell us.
But we can do better. We can make sure that people aren't crossing the border into Pennsylvania and with straw purchasers having firearms to commit crimes in New Jersey.
That's already illegal. How are you going to do even more against that, huh?
Are kept safe from the firearms that, as a prosecutor, I saw coming into our state from places as far away as Texas.
Are these illegal firearms? Legal firearms? What are you talking about?
So those are the things we're fighting for. We want to make sure that we continue to have the great gun safety legislation we have in New Jersey.
Yep, continue. Note the word continue there. So there we see a bunch of pointless statistics that weren't even given with sources, as well as some opinions on laws which are already existing that should be made illegal even though those are already crimes. Obviously, we can tell what kind of politician and stance Mikie Sherrill has. Another thing is that we could see what Sherrill had as her voting record while being in Congress, as well as on her campaign website. So for one thing, when she was in Congress, she voted for the assault weapons ban of 2022, which is HR 1808. And on top of that, on her campaign website, she committed to expanding law enforcement efforts to take illegal guns off the street. And she doesn't give details as to how to doing that, as well as she supports enhancing requirements for the safe storage of firearms, particularly in places where children are present. And this is a very worrying one, because basically, does that mean there's going to be additional laws imposed upon you as a citizen in your private domicile of how you need to store your firearms? Obviously, safe storage is important. At the same time, forcing someone to buy specific safes, specific storage devices could be expensive, restricting them from Second Amendment rights, as well as forcing them to have their weapons stored in a specific room of the house or a specific way, which limits their ability to access that weapon in a situation where they may need it, is dangerous and terrifying to even think about. So these being vaguely worded on her website was horrible, and I hate to see it. And obviously, we can see that there are issues with this. On top of that, she is committed to bills requiring universal background checks and closing the Charleston loophole. The universal background checks has been in this country since the 80s, so I don't even understand why that point is being brought up. It seems to be brought up way too often when it's already in place. So based on this information, we can see that she's probably no worse than Governor Murphy was, and who I would say is a historical low point for New Jersey in terms of the Second Amendment. That being said, this is not a new crisis. This is something that New Jersey has been used to for the past 8 years and will probably continue to be used to for a little bit longer. However, there is some good news. That good news being that the power doesn't always lay with the government. In fact, it lays with the courts. And in this situation, the courts actually are looking very promising for New Jersey. Now, this is coming down to the federal courts, and ever since the Bruen's decision, which changed a lot of things for New Jersey, like actually being able to get your concealed carry license and carry a firearm compared to what you were able to do just a few years ago, is a huge dramatic difference, and this is only going to continue in New Jersey's future. So because of Bruen, we now know that consistent with the nation's historical traditions of firearm regulations is how the law has to be followed. And there are a couple of issues with New Jersey's current laws when it comes to this regard. That being that New Jersey used to be able to give laws just based on public safety and not have to give any sort of historical evidence of such a law ever existing in the history of the nation. And that can no longer be done. So, for example, why a lot of citizens weren't able to carry in the past was because of public safety. They can't do that anymore. And a lot of laws which are still in place are also going to be taken down in a similar fashion. The most vulnerable of these laws being the New Jersey assault weapons ban and the magazine ban, or the magazine restrictions on capacity. I don't know all the information on this case, but I do know that it's called Cheeseman v. Platkin, and is being heard en banc by the full panel of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. So why this is good is obviously it means that this is a highly vulnerable law which is being contested in the courts right now in New Jersey, and most likely, if I had to give a timeline and estimation, I would say within 1 to 2 years we are going to see the results of this, and we're going to see this law actually be taken down, and you'll be able to get assault weapons, which is not even a real term. If you haven't seen my video on what an assault weapon from New Jersey is defined as, I definitely suggest you check that out. And then you're going to also have the magazine size restrictions taken down. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'd love to see in 1 to 2 years. That's of course an estimate from my part, and I am hoping to see it does happen. Now, one of the biggest fears that most people have being in New Jersey is, well, they could just put up new laws. Instead of 10 rounds, it will be 15 rounds or 20 rounds. How does any of this actually solve the problem? And that's because the more that these laws are put into place and the more that the courts will have a court case about this, and you're going to see these laws be taken down, actually means that there's going to be more legal precedent against new laws coming up in the future. And if they do, they can be immediately dismissed, being able to cite a previous case and saying, hey, look, we already went to court about this. We already saw how that ended and what the cause and reasoning was of why the law in the first place was illegal and unconstitutional, and you can go ahead and cite that now, and boom, case is dismissed even sooner. So the more laws that we actually have put in place and then immediately contested is actually a good thing in the long run for laws like this being able to be made in the first place, not just for New Jersey, but even throughout the entire country. Now, of course, I'm not saying that Sherrill can't do anything. She can impose additional laws, and that would be horrible. At the same time, it does mean that in the long term, things are going to get better for New Jersey as a whole, as well as the entire country. And so my final message for New Jersey is, with the light of these court cases which are currently in session, no matter who is in power, who is the governor, we do have some good things to look forward to, and I hope they do happen. If you're new here, definitely consider subscribing. I've done a ton of videos on New Jersey laws, as well as specifics for carrying, CCW, getting your FID, etc. So definitely subscribe if you're into that, or you have any questions or specifics you want to see. And what you think of the governor, you could leave that down in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. Also, just helps YouTube reach out to more people with this video, and more people need to see this and more educational Second Amendment content. So definitely send them our way. Hit a like on the video as well to help out with the algorithm. Definitely suggest watching some other New Jersey videos I have up. So eye in the top right corner, or just click on Modern Maccabee down below. I hope to see you guys in the next video, and thank you so much for watching. Unfortunately, I did have to re-record this one. The audio was just messed up from the first time, so I'm hoping I can edit this up and have it up for you as soon as possible. Again, thank you for watching, especially if you made it all the way to this point. I'll see you in the next one.